What is up, YouTube? Today I'm coming back at you with another tabletop RPG review, and I'm sorry if the colors look a little bit weird. I'm actually filming this at almost 1 o'clock in the morning. I just finished some prep for my campaign that I'm running, so I was feeling kind of inspired, and I wanted to do a review of this. Now, I know I've talked about this in previous videos a number of different times, but I've never actually covered it in a specific review. So today we're going to be taking a look at Pathfinder 1st Edition. Now, why I'm calling it Pathfinder 1st Edition, even though it doesn't really say anything on it, is because the 2nd edition of Pathfinder is pretty much on the horizon. They're doing the playtest of it right now, and I think in sometime next year they're going to come out with the 2nd edition. So I'm going to call it Pathfinder 1st Edition, and I'm probably going to put that in the title of the video just to clarify, so when that does come out, people aren't looking at my video thinking it's 2nd edition. So, Pathfinder 1st Edition. This is going to be pretty much a review of the system, what I think about the system, how it plays. So first, let's talk about what my background is with this system. And actually, before we even go to that, let's talk about the books in themselves. So, Pathfinder has a lot of different stuff. So, there are more books than I can even count. I have the core rule book plus about a dozen different splat books, which are just various source books that add character options, character races, feats, and just things for characters and player characters. I have about a dozen of those. I have the Game Mastery Guide, and I've got a bestiary, and I've got so much stuff for this game, and it's kind of crazy. So if you're looking for something that is very well developed, I think this is probably one of the most supported and most well-developed systems out there. You have enough stuff in this game that you can play forever. You can pretty much play this system forever with the amount of stuff. And that's not even including pre-made adventures. If you just want to play homebrew stuff, you have enough source material and splat books and game master tools. Like I even have the ultimate equipment, adds tons of extra magical items and stuff. You have enough stuff forever, really. You could play it forever and never really get bored and always have new content to play. So, if you're looking for a mature system, this is one I would recommend. So, let's take a look at the book itself. So, this is the core rule book. This is the only thing you need to play the game. If you want to run the game, you actually need one other book. This basically, if you're comparing it to D&D, this basically takes your your Dungeon Master's Guide and your Player's Handbook and combines them into one tome here. And it's a pretty hefty tome. Let me check how many pages exactly we come into. We are looking at 575 pages. So you have a lot of different stuff in here. Tons of stuff. All the mechanics are in here. Your base classes are in here. Your feats are in here. You've got everything you need to play this game in one book, basically. To run this book, you also would need a bestiary, because that's the only thing lacking from this book is the bestiary. Now, there's a couple different formats you can actually get for stuff for Pathfinder. You have hardcover stuff, which is, in my opinion, the best stuff. Paizo's books are the best quality books that I've ever seen. I think they have higher quality pages than the D&D stuff, and the covers and artwork is just as good as D&D stuff. So I put it just a hair above D&D quality stuff. Then you also have paperback versions for all the core books and most of the supplements. So like the Advanced Player's Guide, the Advanced Race Guide is coming out, Ultimate Equipment, Ultimate Combat, Ultimate Magic. They're all going to get paperback versions, and I have quite a number of those in paperback just because they're super cheap. Most of them are $20 brand new, and you can get them even cheaper on Amazon. But you also have hardcovers for a lot of this stuff. Pretty much all the stuff comes in hardcovers. And then there's some saddlebacks, staple stitched stuff that are called Player's Companions. Those also offer player options. I have one of those right now, and they are like 30 pages or so, and it just offers very specific things. I don't really plan on getting a whole bunch of those, but there's a couple of those out there as well. And then you also have pre-made adventures. Tons of different content. To put it into perspective, the size of this book, this is the 4th edition D&D Player's Handbook, and this is also a little preview of something I'm going to do a review on later. But this is the 4th edition Player's Handbook, and here's the core rulebook for Pathfinder. And as you can see, it is probably about double the size, almost, I would say, almost double the size of this thing. So it's a lot of info in this book here. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes and actually talk about the system itself. So what is Pathfinder? Well, if you've seen reviews about Pathfinder before, you may know that Pathfinder is basically something that was made in response to this game right here. This is D&D 4th edition, and what this game did, this changed basically everything that people knew about D&D at the time. It tried to go in a completely new direction and changed tons of core mechanics, like the magic system was completely overhauled, and it just didn't get a good reception. People did not like the things that they did in this game for some reason. Now, I'm not going to say I agree with that 100% or not, but it was a big change nonetheless, and it's undeniable how big of a change this version of this game was. And so, what happened was, Paizo, the people that make Pathfinder, took the previous version of D&D, which was D&D 3.5, updated it, did a bunch of fixes, and added some new stuff to the system, and called it Pathfinder. So this is basically an updated version of D&D 3.5 with tons of new stuff and a lot more rebalancing work done to it. And if you want to play 3.5, I think this is the best version of 3.5. There's no reason to really play 3.5 other than using 3.5 books in Pathfinder, which is totally possible. So it's basically 3.5. So if you've played 3rd edition of 3.5, you've basically played Pathfinder. But if not, it's a very crunchy system. So what a crunchy system is a system with tons of rules for pretty much everything, and anything you can think of has pretty much a ruling in this book on how to do it, and it's very clear and it's very concise. So let's say you wanted to do mounted combat, it has rules for that. Say you wanted to grapple somebody, it has rules for that. Say you were holding on to somebody and wanted to throw them off a ship, it's got rules for that. It's pretty much covers everything you could want to do in one book. So the upside is anything that you could imagine, it's got a rule on how to do it, so you don't really have to worry about, oh, what if the DM doesn't let me do this, or what if my player can't do this, or like it prevents some stuff from happening where basically the DM rules it one way one session, and then a couple sessions later he might have forgotten what he ruled it as, so he changes it and it's not exactly the same. It's a lot of the stuff in here is spelled out pretty clearly, so it puts a lot more weight of learning the mechanics on the player. That may be a downside to some, that may be an upside to others, because there's a lot less pressure on the DM to get the rules right, because the players have to know the rules for their classes. So let's go over the races first. So what races are in the core rulebook here? We have elves, you have gnomes, half-elves, half-orcs, halflings, humans, and that's it. So that's the core spread there. And then for classes, you've got barbarians, you've got bards, you've got clerics. Yeah, the clerics have quite a large section here. So then you have druids, fighters, monks, paladins, rangers, rogues, sorcerers, and wizards. I think that's everything in the book for, yeah. So that's all the core classes and core races. So you've got a really good selection of core races. Well, not like a great selection of core races. It's pretty much a standard spread of core races. But the classes, you have a lot of classes in here for a core rulebook. So that's really, really nice. You definitely have more classes in here than 5th edition. So that's one really cool thing. Now, one thing that's really, really big in this game is your character creation. So your character creation in this game is very complex. You have tons of skills that you can put skill points into. So basically, you have your standard stat array, and that basically works the same as in D&D. And then you have your base attack bonus, which tells you what kind of bonuses you get when you roll attack rolls. You have your combat maneuver bonuses, and defenses, which are your grappling roll stuff. You have your skills, which are actually not covered in any other proficiency system like 5th edition. You have skill points, so basically every single skill has an allocated attribute, and basically you get your attribute modifier to that skill, and then you can also put ranks into them, and that also improves the modifiers. So, and then some other items and stuff and some different classes give you special bonuses for different skills. So you have tons of different modifiers for skills, and you have a very in-depth skill system. You have very tactical combat. You have with their feat system. Your feats, you get lots of different feats in this. So if you've played 5th edition and you like feats, this is like feats galore. Feats are a major component of your character. If you have no idea what feats are, they're like powers for your character that basically let them do cool things or improve certain aspects of your character. For instance, I'll give you an example for one of my characters that I've played. I used to play a maneuver master monk, and my build was, and just to show you the customization, monks are normally hand-to-hand combat fighters with no weapons, and I took my monk and I wanted to make him the best at grappling possible. So I made him an archetype, which is something that's in this game, where you can basically take a base class or a standard class, and a lot of them have archetypes, which are just specializations, and what those do is they just substitute the base powers with special powers that suit that archetype. The Maneuver Master Monk, for example, takes your Flurry of Blows, which lets you attack 2 times in 1 turn, and replaces it with allowing you to do 2 grapple actions in 1 turn instead of just 1 grapple action. So it's called Flurry of Maneuvers, and I had Flurry of Maneuvers, and I customized that with some feats, and I did Kraken Style, which what Kraken Style does is when you grapple, you get bonuses for grappling. And you also start doing damage to your opponent's armor, and you also get some extra modifiers onto your damage that way. So it's basically feats in this game are just like enhancements to your character in certain specific aspects, and sometimes powers, like you have Cleave, which can let you hit 2 enemies. So feats are very versatile, and it's a really big part of this game. Another thing about this game is the progression is very it's all the same for every single class. So you've got 3,000. Well, you have a couple different speeds actually for the progression in this system. You have 3,000 for slow progression for the 2nd level. Medium progression is 2,000, and fast progression is 1,300. Normally, I've never really played a campaign with anything other than fast XP progression, and most campaigns I've actually played do milestone marker progression. So like when we do a certain quest or a certain amount of quests, we'll level up. We don't really get XP. So it really just depends on how your team wants to run it. But some other things about this game are the The combat itself is very tactical. You don't have to use a grid. I've played this with, I've played sessions where we didn't use a grid, we did Theater of the Mind, and it works pretty well. The only thing is you're constantly having to ask, how far away am I in feet? Am I going to hit my allies? Because a lot of spells will do cones and stuff. So you kind of constantly ask that question. But other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory and it works really well. Now, the power in this. If you like high fantasy at epic power levels, this is going to be a great game for you. Your characters in this game, when you start off at level 1, they're already better than most 0 level and 1st level NPCs like farmers and commoners and even guards. You're kind of already a little bit better than, unless the GM of course makes them better. But like your standard pre-statted up NPCs in here, you're already a little bit better than the standard guys. So your power level increases incredibly quickly in this game, and by 20th level you're doing crazy stuff. For instance, some monks can leave their own body and astral project through walls and stuff. So you got crazy powers at like level 20. So if you wanted to get into a game that there was a lot of progression like that, where there's tons of powers and like crazy power levels at the end, and you're having crazy power battles at the end, this is the game for you. There's tons of customization basically for this game, and you have tons of options for pretty much anything you wanted to do. Now, I've pretty much been singing praises for this game and the things I really like about this game. I really like the tactical combat. I really like the character customizations and the skill system. I really like the skill system in this game, and just a lot of the other mechanics for this game I really enjoy. I think they're quite intuitive. But let's talk about the stuff I don't like about this game, because I've played this game in a number of different campaigns, and I'm running this game currently as a GM, and so I do have pretty good perspective of this game, and I want to talk a little bit about the things I don't like. Now, pretty much all the things I like about this game come from a player's perspective. Playing this game from a player's perspective is amazing. In my opinion, as a player, this is my favorite game. I love playing this game. This game is great as a player. As a GM, not so much. Not that it's a really bad game to GM or anything. It's just a lot of work. The amount of rules that you have and the amount of stuff that you have to keep track of for rules, and the stat blocks, and learning how the stat blocks interact with the stat blocks for characters, and your different trap stuff, and just the complexity of encounters in this game really makes it a long prep time. You have to really think about a lot of different things when you're designing encounters, because everything really matters. Even if you don't play with a grid map, I really highly recommend, if you're running this game, to at least get some graph paper so the GM, know what your encounters are going to look like, because without it, it can get really messy really fast. So as a GM, this game is kind of complex, and the sheer depth of options, having to keep track of what your characters can and can't do, because there's so many splat books, it's kind of hard to keep track of all of your players, especially if you're running a larger campaign like me. I have I think 6 characters right now running in my campaign, and keeping track of each one of their classes and remembering each one of their powers and which feats they've chosen, just so I can remind them in case they forget what they can and can't do with their powers, it's kind of intense, and the sheer amount of stuff is crazy. Also, in the GMing portion, designing encounters at high levels is really hard, because, like I said, your power levels for your characters goes up really high, and it goes up really fast. So making sure encounters are balanced really goes out the window probably around a 10th level. It starts to get really hard to balance stuff. So at that point, you really can't take the CR ratings into account that much. You kind of got to take them with a grain of salt. So, because it can all really depends at up to that point what your players are doing. If your players are min-maxing, which is heavily a thing in this, that's one of the things I don't like, is how easy it is to min-max in this game because of the depth of options and the stuff you can do. You can min-max real easy, and if there's a player that's power gaming, which is something I don't really like, I like to build off of a certain concept, a character concept, for like a backstory or something. If somebody's power gaming, it can really throw off the power balance and make it really hard to balance encounters because of how much power gaming can happen. You can really, for instance, you can probably do twice as much damage as somebody not power gaming at 10th level. So it can really throw off balancing, so it makes it hard. And just the complexity of combat past 10th level really makes combat slow down. It takes a long time to get through stuff, especially with a lot of different characters and a lot of different NPCs. It takes a lot of time because you've got to worry about attacks of opportunity, what kind of things cause attacks of opportunity, and tactical movement, and spell effects that are constantly going on, and what kind of lingering effects there are, potions, traps, stuff like that. You've got a lot to worry about in combat for this game, and it's a very combat-heavy game with a lot of crunch. So if you're into that, I think it's a great system for you. But it's also something that I see as a negative, because it's really complex, which I really like, but it's something I also kind of dislike. I really like the complexity when it comes to character customization, is really what I'm trying to get at here. If you like character customization, this is the best system that I've seen for it. Pathfinder 2nd Edition remains to be seen. I really haven't taken a big look at it yet. I'm basically waiting for the finished product. But in terms of 1st Edition, it's the best character customization that I've come into contact with, that I like. The real problem is the slowness of combat, which something that I've heard that they're fixing with Pathfinder 2nd Edition is they really sped up combat. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, because combat can be really slow with all the different actions that you've got. You have swift actions, you've got standard actions, you have movement actions, you've got bonus actions, you've got tons of different actions, reactions. You've got a lot of different actions that you have to keep track of, and it kind of slows combat down a lot. But which can you really do? So that's basically a look at the core rulebook itself and what I think about it. Now, would I say it's still my favorite? Sorry, would I say it's still my favorite game of all time? Yes and no. Now that I've run this game, and I'm currently running it, I would have to say that this is my favorite game. This Pathfinder 1st Edition is my favorite game as a player. I love playing Pathfinder. It is the most rewarding game that I've ever played, and it's what got me hooked on tabletop RPGs. This was my first, this wasn't my first tabletop RPG. Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 was my first tabletop RPG, and this is basically the same thing, but with improved mechanics. So this is really like my first love when it comes to tabletop RPGs, and as a player, it's still my favorite tabletop RPG. I currently play 5th edition right now. I'm in a campaign where I'm playing 5th edition. I'm not in any campaigns right now where I'm playing Pathfinder. I'm just running Pathfinder at the moment. But overall, in terms of a player, definitely my favorite system. Now, in terms of GM, because I hadn't run this system back when I first started talking about Pathfinder a lot, I hadn't run it yet. So as a GM, though, I don't know if this is my favorite system. I've looked into this stuff for 5th edition, and that seems like a much more attractive system in terms of running the game. Now, don't get me wrong, I have no problems running Pathfinder. It's a lot of work, and it takes a long time to actually set up stuff. If you're doing a complete homebrew thing like I am. Now, if you're doing a pre-made adventure or using campaign settings, it really takes a lot of that load off. If you just even use like a campaign setting, it really takes a lot of the load off, because you know what kind of monsters are there, you know what cities looks like, you know what kind of magic items there are. There's so many magic items in the system that it takes forever just to look through magic items. So, yeah, in terms of GMing, not my favorite system, but don't mind it at all. It's really not a bad system to GM. Now, what would I recommend if you wanted to get into Pathfinder? I would really recommend starting with the core rulebook and just playing out of the core rulebook at first, because there's a ton of different books to add on to it. But if you're starting off, just get the core rulebook and Bestiary 1, or just the Pathfinder Bestiary. Doesn't really have a number after it. Just get the Pathfinder Bestiary and this, and you can run this game for quite a while and have a ton of content in it. Or, alternatively, if you're intimidated by the size of this book, I really, really recommend the Pathfinder Beginner's Box. It's got a ton of good content in there. It really simplifies the game, really breaks down how to play this game in the simplest of terms, and really shows you how to do things in terms of GMing and playing. It's got a great resource there in the Beginner's Box, and it gives you everything you need to play. You've got cardboard tokens for your characters and monsters, you get dice, you get books on how to make characters, pre-generated characters, how to run the game, a pre-made adventure, a flip mat, and you get it all in a really nice box. So, and it also gives you a conversion guide in the back on how to convert the characters into fully fledged characters in the full version of Pathfinder. So, would I recommend this game? Yes. I highly recommend this game if you're familiar with tabletop RPGs. If you're new to tabletop RPGs and you've never played one before, I really recommend the Beginner's Box if you want to get into Pathfinder. But you can get into the full game. That's how I did it. I just went straight into 3.5 and then straight into Pathfinder. I never did the Beginner Box stuff, and I learned it perfectly fine. It's really not that difficult, but it's a great system. It's one of my favorites, and I'm probably going to play this for years to come. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comment box below. I'm kind of sad to see Pathfinder 1st Edition end, but it had to happen at some point. I mean, it's been around for 10 years. I remember when Pathfinder first came out, I was in high school, and I was just, I don't know, it was weird. Like, it's weird seeing it end after it's been around for so long, and moving on to 2nd edition. So I'm excited, but also sad at the same time. But yeah, I really like this game. It's one of my favorites, and I highly recommend it to everybody. It's not the easiest game to learn, I won't lie, but it's not the most difficult system to learn either. So let me know what you guys think in the comment box below. I love doing these videos, and I love hearing your responses. I read and respond to as many comments as I humanly can. Whenever I see that bell light up with a notification, I always click on it and I respond to those comments. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Let me know what Sorry about that last little jump cut. It seems to always happen in these RPG videos. But let me know in the comment box below what you thought of this video, and what RPGs you want me to take a look at in the future. I'm always looking for new systems and stuff, so thank you guys for watching again, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.